Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to the channel. I am Wally, and welcome to Wally World's Gaming, where we'll be doing some gaming content onto the channel. One of the gaming content that I'm going to speak to you guys today is Raid Shadow Legends. Now, this is be one of the games that I perform on this channel, so just be in mind of that. But with that said, let's get started on what the topic is today. And the topic is today about Alice Adventures event, aka the Alice in the Wonderland package. So as you guys can see here, Alice and amongst others that are from Alice in the Wonderland are in the game, but in a nice unique twist version, which I actually am pretty impressed about because it's pretty good. But real quick, I just want to bring this in as far as starting the new year off with a new event and with a new login champion that you can log in for the first 7 days, get some resources the next 7 days, and then of course gain her stars, her soul stars in the next 14 or the next 2 weeks afterwards after you collected the first 14. So first things first, let me review some skills and then we'll move on from there. And yeah. So Alice the Wanderer. Skill number 1, attacks one enemy 2 times, place an extra hit if the target has any active skill on cooldown. Each hit has an 80% chance of decreasing the duration of any random buff on any target by 1 turn. So this is interesting, right? So pretty much she has pretty much an optional triple hit on one enemy, and if things pull out the way they do, she's pretty much knocking down the random buffs for 1 turn each. So if the target only has potentially 1 buff, that buff is going to be exterminated and everything else is gone from it altogether, or anything that's just protecting it altogether. So this is pretty good. And literally is able to put an extra hit if there's an active skill on cooldown. So that means pretty much in most cases, you would want her to be somewhat slow in a sense, meaning you want the enemy team to go first and then she goes in after. But that means you have to be very mindful how to build her because, of course, she's an attack-based champion. So she might, and we don't know stats just yet, so she might be squishy maybe. But since she's a Lego, she shouldn't be as squishy. But we'll see about that. Okay, her A2, Clockwork Cyclone. Attack all enemies, have a 75% chance of increasing the cooldown of all enemy skills by 2 turns. Also has a 75% chance of decreasing each target's turn meter by 15% if at least one of the target skill has its cooldown increased to the max. Decrease their turn meter to 30% instead, which is freaking crazy. That is crazy. But that's the interesting part, because what is the max number of a cooldown being locked up? That's one thing I don't know about. I don't know what the max number really is. I mean, you would think like most turns, like amongst arena, grand arena, live arena, or just any battle overall, like the max. I don't really remember what the max, how much a cooldown can be maxed up to. So that's interesting. I mean, something that they're gonna have to put that in a statement because I don't really remember, but I'll probably look it up later. But that's a very interesting move. Her A3, Queenslayer, attacks one enemy will ignore 20% of the target's defense. If the initial target is killed, also attacks the enemy with the lowest HP will also ignore 20% of the target's defense. That's pretty nice. That's pretty nice. So just looking at the first 3 skills alone, this tells me that she's going to need a certain requirement of setup amongst her, like her gear, because you want to be very mindful of like how you want to set her up. I mean, I could see protection being used on her. Well, not protection, stone skin to be exactly. I can see stone skin being used on her. I can see Slayer. As far as the higher up levels. Now, if you're someone that's brand new, that is going to be very questionable. I mean, obvious, perception, accuracy, speed. Well, not even speed, honestly, because you technically want to build her for a second go team. But then again, it's like if you don't really care to really do what's really on the 8-2 completely, then it's like, yeah, go first, because you're going to have to pick one, because going second, yeah, you better hope you can survive. That's one thing for sure. But yeah, but let's read off the passive, right? Passive TikTok. Whenever this champion attacks, inflicts 3% bonus damage to each target for each turn remaining on all of their skills cooldown. The bonus damage is counted individually for each target. Active effect. Reset the cooldown of one of this champion's skills each time they kill an enemy. Occurs once per turn. Interesting. Once per skill. Sorry. Yeah, let me make sure I say that right. And then, of course, her Aurora increase ally attack in all battles by 30%. All right, nice. So let's talk about it. What is my review of Alice as far as being the new login champion? Well, first and foremost, finally, we get a champion that's not a support champion. I'm just going to be honest. We had 3 support champions. We got Chronocore Adeline, Loki, and Skeletor. And out of all 3, Loki probably the best one of the package. But finally, we move on. We get some attackers. We get possibly a damage dealer or a nuker in Alice. But how do I take her? Honestly, it really all depends on how you're trying to build her out. I honestly would say that it all depends on when you're trying to build her out. Of course, she's definitely a lockout champion for most cases. She could be a nuker if you don't care for a knockout. Well, let me say it's more so a damage dealer. Unless you only solely use her for your nuking potential. So they all pick and choose. My thing is with Alice, she sounds pretty good. I mean, she is pretty good, right? Let me make sure that makes sense. She definitely is pretty good, for sure, right? But because of the requirements of all the stats that is needed, because usually when you stack up a lot of things on a champion that can do a lot of things, it's a harder time to build out and put some nice solidary stats on most of the times, especially if you're low on gear. So, for instance, if you're a newer player coming into the game, it's going to be a minute before you get the right couple of sets on Alice and make her really nasty. Whereas somebody that's been in the game longer, they probably be able to set that up real good. But I do think that Alice, as far as just starting off, is going to be solid for a lot of new players coming into the game, especially since she's Sacred Order. So if you're smart enough to pick Aethel, you have a decent start to like Faction Wars on the jump whenever Faction Wars open up for Sacred Order. So, hey, and plus you get a lockout champion across the board. I mean, what else? I mean, that's pretty good right there. That's pretty good. But what do I take for ultimately? I mean, because when we think about attackers, especially like damage dealers, nukers at the high grade, you didn't see too much of an increased attack. She did have a Nord defense, in most cases, and everything else. Honestly, I take her as a nice damage dealer, but with a lot of with a decency of utility that can be paired with other lockout champions. That's pretty much it. That's how I look at her. I might be wrong, but that's just taking my first guess before I ever get a chance to see her, really play out and put some gear behind her. But that is my predictions on Alice. I think she's pretty good, ultimately, all in all. Actually, hold up, because I may want to talk about something else. Preliminary. Actually, yeah, let's talk a little bit. Let's talk about the others that came along. See, now I was partially right about this because other people were talking about this, but I was right about the Chester Cat. I know a lot of people was a little bit like off-putting because there was another champion amongst these the window the Alice Adventures, right? That was going to be deemed as demon spawn, and people were like, okay, so it can't be the Chester Cat, right? Because you would think Chester Cat would be skinwalkers, which that's true. You would think it would be skinwalkers, but because we know that they're doing their own little versions on the characters, it was obvious it was going to be like a demon spawn. And I was like, yeah, he has to be demon spawn because there's no other important characters in Alice in the Wonderland that couldn't been, demon spawnish, in my opinion, other than Chester Cat. Because when you talk about Chester Cat, I think they say that his character's like I forgot exactly, but I think mysterious and mischievous. And if you know, so something like that. So yeah, so Chess Cat was pretty much obvious in my mind. I can't wait to see what he does because he's probably the most like ideal character that I would love to see what he does. Because I won't be surprised if he helps Alice in a way, just like in like the TV show / movies or the animated cartoon that they had together. I'm pretty sure he helps Alice in some way, shape, and fashion. Mad Hatter was pretty nice and solid as well, even though he's using certain areas really. But I believe the only reason he's using certain areas because most of his skills are just cracked. We already know about the Queen of Hearts for most of you guys that have been following up on info. And then the Cave of Hearts, he's sort of brand new. I don't know what he does just yet, but something tells me he's going to definitely help the Queen of Hearts, of course, because why not? And that probably is a partner champion only to help out her and not in the same renaissance of her helping out the King of Hearts, pretty much. So we'll see what happens there. But one thing's for sure, this event is on right now. So you better go in there and have some fun. And if you're someone brand new, stay tuned to the channel because I'm definitely going to give them out more newer player guides, tips as far as how to get into the game, how to start off, and all that stuff. So see you guys till later, and peace out. Much love to you.